Hey, welcome back to another video. I'm Ivan Calderon, and today we're making a beat. Okay, so today I want to make something along the lines of like an R&B type beat, and specifically one that revolves around some sort of a guitar loop. I haven't really used my guitar in a while, so I definitely want to make that happen today. Okay, so for this beat, I have my guitar plugged into an Avid 11 rack, which is basically a guitar tone emulator. And all that basically is just a box full of like tones and presets for your guitar. And right now I have one called the Chicken Funk, and it sounds like this. All right, let's get started. Okay, so let's break this beat down real quick. Now, as you can see, I've already arranged the whole thing and we'll kind of go through it together. But I always start my beats out in the chorus or the main part. And really, this started with the guitar. And that guitar really only has 3 chords, 2 main chords, and then just kind of like a switch up at the end. And again, that sounds like this. Repeats, and then a little switch up at the end. Now from here, basically what I did was I took those chords that I played on the guitar and I put it on a soft piano, which sounds like this. And of course, it just has the same chords from the guitar. But from there, I literally just duplicated this MIDI over to some like whirly vibrato phaser keys, which sound like this. From there, took that exact same MIDI, duplicated again, and I added it to this synth, which sounds like this. And last but not least, I duplicated it one more time to add it to a pad, which sounds like this. Now, the little whirly keys, the pad, the synth, and the soft piano are all layered together. And this is just to create more, I guess, ambiance, just to add more texture to the beat. But once we add all the instruments together for that main part, we get this. Switch up. But okay, once we had the instruments down, we moved on to the drums, and the first thing that I added were some close hats. Now for the close hats, I actually had two. The first one is just a consistent hat with 8th notes and a couple 16th notes sprinkled in, and that sounds like this. 16th notes. And that just kind of repeats all the way to the end. But then I added another hat. Now that second hat is a different texture, and it has some gaps in between just to kind of switch things up a bit. But together, those two hats and the instruments sound like this. Gap. Moving on, of course, we had to have a kick and a snare, nothing too crazy or interesting about that, just a very, very simple pattern. The next interesting thing, at least for me here, were the hi-hats. Now the hi-hats, I had two of them, and again, like with the close hats, they were to add a different texture to create some more interesting variation in what I was playing, but together, they sound like this. Let me just bring them up so you can see. Here they are. As you just heard, one was more live sounding, the other one was more not live sounding, but together they create a really interesting texture. Now, from there, I wanted a little bit more movement in my drums, so I brought in a shaker loop from Splice, and we also had some crashes to introduce some of the major sections. But with that shaker loop, we get this. I'm gonna take it off so you hear the difference. So yeah, it just adds a little bit more movement. Now last but not least, on this section, we had a live sounding electric bass from a new plugin that I just got called Dandy. I've actually done a video on this, so I'm gonna link it up top for you here in case you missed it. But pretty much this thing is amazing because it gives you a lot of controls to shape the tone and the sound of your bass. But once I bring in the pattern that I wrote, you get this. Very gritty. A little distortion added in there. Now, if I were to play just the bass and the drums, just so you can get that feel for the groove, this is what that is. And then, of course, the entire beat for this section. Okay, so let's talk about the arrangement. But okay, the structure for this beat was really intro, verse, chorus, verse, chorus, a breakdown piece, and then two choruses at the end. Usually when I'm doing like R&B or something along like this kind of vibe, I do like to introduce the verse first and then the chorus. If it was something like a trap beat or something like a pop beat, I might do the chorus first, but for this specific beat, I did the verse first. Now for the intro, what I basically did was I kept those little phaser whirly keys, the main guitar, and then the soft piano, and that sounds like this. Now, moving into the verse, you'll notice that I dropped out the main guitar. I brought in that synth, And then for the first couple measures here in the beginning, I dropped out the shaker loop, I dropped out the bass, I dropped out that consistent hi-hat and only kept the one with the gaps. Because I wanted to reduce the energy. I wanted to let the listener know that we're now in the verse. This is not the main part of the beat. And then lastly, I also brought in this little kind of drip sound effect that I got from Splice, which sounds like this. And there I added a little bit of delay, but once we listen to that transition, it sounds like this. A little riser there. Now these are about to come back in. Shaker, bass, close hat. Now the other thing you'll notice here is that for the bass part, I actually rewrote the MIDI to create a more mellow version of what I had because I wanted to leave the initial part, the initial piece, only for the chorus. But again, that bass sounds like this. Now, midway through the verse, I introduced a brand new guitar. Now that guitar sounds like this. So then the transition from the first half of the verse to the second half sounds like this. Now last but not least here, I usually love to take away some elements from the drums to transition back into the chorus because we're about to go into an area of high energy. So I want to just cut back a little bit before I introduce that main part. But that sounds like this. Now that second verse is an exact duplicate of the first. The second chorus is an exact duplicate of the first as well. And then we just had a little breakdown piece here, which is really just the chorus without drums. But this is what we get. And then we go right back into the chorus. I also forgot to mention this, but on the chorus is where I had the pad. It's the only place where I had the pad. But there you have it. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully it was helpful to you. And if it was, please give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you're not already. But as always, I will see you on the next one.